The Survivor Specialist Phil and Will are back with another episode of Everything You Need to Know About. And today we are talking about Charlie Davis, runner up from Survivor 46. Will, I'm excited to get your take on what you think we need to know about Charlie here, because other than like Dom, maybe the closest to winning who didn't win in the history of Survivor. I know we've had some one vote losses here, and this is technically a 2-vote loss, being that it was 5-3. But also with how close he was with Maria the entire season, I feel like a lot of people feel like he was so close to having that tie, and then it's universally known that Ben would have voted for him to win. So what do we need to know about him, and what's your expectation for him at this point?
Yeah, I think saying like top 5 closest to winning out of any of the runner-ups in the franchise's history is absolutely fair. Obviously, you have Kelly and Colby in the first 2 seasons losing by 1 vote, which is technically closer than Charlie here. As you said, Charlie lost by 2 votes. Chase was pretty close to beating Fabio. That was 5-4. So that's only 1 vote. And then obviously you mentioned Dom. And then I think Charlie's in that 5 spot, right?
I think, like, look, Clay lost by 1 to Brian, right? But at the same time,
right, we're not including
when you look at a 2-vote loss, there's 8 people on the jury. So it has to be either 5-3 or 4-4. So it can't be 4-3. If you eliminate one of the people from the jury, it's 4-4. I just think with Charlie, if he gets Maria's vote, he wins the game. Right. And it seemed like that was a done deal. I remember when we were doing our, predict what's going to happen in that episode, that finale, we were all pretty much like, yeah, Charlie's got Maria if he's sitting there, which here's who Kenzie's going to get. That ultimately doesn't end up happening. So I just feel like, yeah, even if you don't look at it just from straight up numbers, he feels like he's so close to that win. And coming into this season, do you think he's going to be viewed like that? Do you think he's going to be viewed by the other players as he was that close to winning in a way that Colby, Ozzy, they lose by 1 vote finalists aren't going to be viewed?
Yeah, that's my biggest question with Charlie. And I think we should talk it out because I can see the argument for Charlie is going to be a massive threat. Like we just said, he came very close to winning, the closest to winning out of anybody who didn't win on this season 50 cast. Absolutely. I guess Colby, but like that was so long ago. I'd still put Charlie's more top of mind as a threat, and he's playing a more modern game of Survivor. Like that's the game he almost won, where Colby's win is still, second season of the show. But I could also see the argument, Phil, where like Charlie is in actually a very good spot, and that his threat level, even though he played so recently in Survivor 46, that his threat level's gone down. One, in that he didn't actually win the season. And 2, the rest of the cast, the people that are on this cast around him that kind of fill a similar role to him, there are quite a few. So you look at Genevieve. She will be more top of mind than Charlie, I imagine, even though Genevieve got 5th place and Charlie got 2nd. Suri, okay, Survivor legend, her 5th time playing an ultimate strategist. You have Christian in there. You just mentioned some other runner-ups. We have Aubrey, Ozzy, Coach, Colby, like so many runner-ups that like being a runner-up in Survivor 50 cannot put a target on your back because of the sheer volume of runner-ups that exist on this cast. So I'm very kind of on the fence of how this can go for Charlie. If you told me he's an early boot because people are threatened by him because of how great a game he played in Survivor 46, I would say that's absolutely a possibility. If you were to sit here and Phil and say, you know what, Charlie's in a great spot. He's got a lot of shields ahead of him. I didn't even bring up Rick Devens, who gets 4th place, also kind of a more strategic, maybe game body archetype, a nerdier archetype, something like that. Like there's enough people in this cast that he can hide behind, and I could see him making a deep run. I could see him winning. So I'm like, the range of outcomes for Charlie is massive for me, and maybe we can kind of talk it out and hone down where we think he's going to land.
Yeah, I totally agree with you about that. I feel like with Charlie, it could depend a lot on his starting tribe, which this is one that we're recording after the starting tribes come out. There's going to be episodes that come out after this one for everything you need to know about, where we're not going to have known the starting tribes because we pre-recorded some of those earlier than this. But we do know Charlie's starting tribe. And I think that, whether it wins or loses, how many times he's going to tribal will also impact it. We put out his episode for, his defining episode. That one just came out. And when you talk about it, we chose the one with him and Maria, where Maria was going after him, and she thought that she had all the numbers to get him, but he actually had all the numbers on his side to vote out Q. You really see how good his social game is in that episode. And again, Survivor has a hard time sometimes with social games, but I do feel like Charlie's social game is one that we as an audience were actually pretty easily or able to easily understand, which isn't always the case, right? I feel like the editors actually did a really good job with him, maybe too good of a job with him and not as good of a job with Kenzie on the same season. But I feel like they did a really good job of highlighting what his social game was all about and why people felt more comfortable with him. He's very unassuming, which I just think works in his favor unless he just ends up with the wrong group of people, which is just how Survivor goes, right? But Charlie to me feels like somebody who always kind of has a high ceiling. His starting tribe will just dictate his floor.
Yes, Charlie's social game was immensely good. I mean, I think he's an all right. He's a strategist, and I think he did very well in challenges too. I think he's like a 3-tool player. Is that what we
He
say
won
for
he
Survivor?
won one immunity, no, two immunity challenges and a reward
And
in
an
the
individual
individual
reward,
portion of the
yeah.
game. Yeah.
Yeah, so he can hold his own there. Yeah, on that starting tribe for him, it was Charlie's Angels. He was with the 3 women, and that was the 4 with Ben and Tim on the outside. But he also then forged a very strong bond with Ben, the Dumb and Dumber alliance, and Tim. They ultimately sided going. Maria and Charlie decided to go with Tim and Ben to vote out Jem. So he and Maria very much dictated not only that vote on their tribe before the merge, but even into the merge. They were kind of running the show. And like you said, Charlie is very unassuming, which to me is kind of baffling, especially in like new era Survivor. If you see like the scrawny white guy who speaks well, like he's probably going to be a student of the game. Like
Yeah.
that's your Adam, that's your Spencer. Like I don't know how that archetype yet. Like even Drew in 45 when he got swapped, it's like Drew is clearly just look at the guy. Like he looks nerdy. He puts out a nerdy front. Clearly is a big fan of Survivor and the gamesmanship and the strategy that goes into it. Yet these archetypes, they're not really called out. They should be called out as threats, but they're not. And again, now that everyone's seen Charlie's game, maybe that is now okay. We know what Charlie's about, and maybe that is too threatening. I don't love his tribe, Phil, for him. I don't know how your initial thoughts on where Charlie lands here. I don't know if I see someone that he can immediately grasp onto. I think Chrissy stands out as somebody. You know, we saw him immediately gravitate
Law. Yeah.
towards Maria. And then I don't know, like Tiff and Charlie. How is that going to go?
See, that's where I'm worried for Charlie because
Mhm.
obviously Charlie was integral in the Tiffany boot, that 5-3 boot to get Tiffany out of the game. And then Tiffany was the one with time at the tribal council, at final tribal council. And so I do think that ultimately Tiffany and Charlie are not going to be in a good spot together at all. I think that they're going to be at each other's throats a little bit. I think that's like if you could pick one person you don't want if you're Charlie to be on the same starting tribe as, it's probably Tiffany.
Yes, and I think there is a world where they say, "Look, at least we know each other. You're like the devil you know versus the devil you don't know. Like, let's put the past aside and let's partner up and at least have each other's backs." You hear Sandra say that all the time. Look at returning player seasons. The people that play together are the most dangerous. Doesn't matter what they did on their first season. They have a bond. They have a connection. And when you go out on Survivor to a beach with a new group of players, you will grasp on to anything that you know. And so it is very possible that they can get together, but at the same time, that could isolate them where their tribe says, look, there's 6 of us, there's 2 of them. Let's make them the first 2 boots. That will be easy. You hope that doesn't happen at Survivor 50. You want, maybe the votes to go a little bit different, on not just who played together on previous seasons. That's not the most entertaining Survivor to watch. But outside of Tiffany, who are the problem people? Like, I don't see Jonathan and Charlie clicking. It's hard for me to even see a world where Coach and Charlie are really clicking. Maybe Mike and Charlie, potentially. I could see Mike White wanting to keep kind of a strategic player in the game as a shield. And so it's like, vote out him instead of me.
Yeah.
And then on the women's side, I mentioned Chrissy just because that's kind of the Maria vibes. And then Camilla and D are interesting to me. I could see both Camilla and D being very threatened by Charlie again, or wanting to like keep him in the game as a shield because they know that he is a strong player and a strong strategic force. The only problem with that, though, is Camilla played more recently and D is a winner. So the equity of a Charlie shield for them isn't as high as someone like Tiff or Chrissy or
Yeah.
Mike White. So it's like, yes, Charlie is viewed as a threat. Yes, he's very close to winning the game. If I'm Camilla and D, I don't know if he is someone that is technically a shield for me because I think people are looking at me first before they're looking at Charlie if I'm D or Camilla.
Well, and my biggest thing too is, D and him, could there be that potential on fire podcast alliance that people have talked about, right? D passes the torch to Charlie. I don't know though. Like maybe D wants Charlie around because D's trying to keep high placing people, and maybe there is a D Charlie Camilla type alliance that emerges. But I do agree with you. Not a great starting tribe for him. Probably like one of the worst case scenarios he could have had. It's kind of how I feel about Angelina starting tribe. Angelina just got a bad break with who she has. And I feel the same way about Charlie. And the other thing to keep in mind, and obviously these are different seasons, so it is what it is. But on Charlie's season, he only goes to one pre-merge tribal council, but his tribe never wins an immunity challenge in the pre-merge. They always finish second or they finish third in that one, which I just bring up because we are under the assumption, and maybe Survivor's going to do something different than we expect, that you're going to have to be the winner of these challenges to be safe. And I'm not saying Charlie's the reason for that, but even when I look at this tribe, it's not the Joe and Ozzy tribe. The Joe and Ozzy tribe is the one to me that feels like the winner of most of these challenges. So if you're finishing second place, that might not be good enough. And yes, Charlie's game was very good in season 46, but how good can Charlie's game really be? Can't replicate the same game, in my opinion. And so if that's the case, I do worry with how this tribe shakes out. If they're constantly finishing second, Charlie becomes somebody that they just say, you know what? We're not going to get rid of Jonathan. He's too good at challenges. Let's keep Coach around because is he really a threat to win? Let's keep D around as a threat. Let's keep Tiffany around, whatever.
Yeah, I think this is a situation for Charlie that he could go out very early, one of the first or second people out from his tribe, or he gets his footing and can make a deep run. And I hate to be like, again, putting such a wide range out. We're trying to give you insight. We're trying to give you good predictions, trying to give you everything you need to know. But with someone like Charlie, I truly believe that is the case here. Something from Charlie's game in 46 that he highlights himself is that he's very adaptable. Like if someone turns on you, you go back to them and work with them if you need them. Have a relationship with everybody, not just the people in your alliance. Something doesn't go according to plan, find a new plan. Like be willing to adapt with the game. And that's something I do think like let's say he and Tiffany are isolated and then they want to vote out Tiff as the first member of their tribe. And now it's 6-1. To me, that's not necessarily a death sentence for Charlie. Like, I think he is able to then, okay, it's 6 against 1. If you vote me out, one of the 6 of you is going home. Okay, can we find maybe a 4-3 here or something?
I just lost Will there. I don't know if it's me or if it's him.
I'm still here, and I heard you the whole time.
Well,
I don't know.
I think I lost you there. I think it was the vote because normally I get the little message that says my Wi-Fi is out at the top, like it'll tell me, but it didn't give me that, and I'm still connected to the Ethernet. So I think it was you, but you said something about.
Anyway, let me just reiterate what I said then, in case I went out. Is
Yeah.
that Tiffany and Charlie could be isolated on their tribe. Tiffany could go home first, even. It could be 6-1 against Charlie. Now, I still think he finds a way to sneak through. He's so adaptable. Remember that one. This was the post merge when they split into 2 groups, and he was. I forget the exact shakeup, but he was the only one from the Green tribe.
No, he was with Maria.
Oh, he was.
But him and Maria were outnumbered by Liz, Venus, Tevin, and Soda. So they were outnumbered.
Okay, it was the 4 against 2, and they were all from the same starting tribe. And look, there are tons of cracks there. Not to say that Charlie was responsible for those, but what looked like a bad position, he was able to navigate and put into a very positive position for him. So, like, I'm leaning more towards that Charlie is going to find his footing in this game, just from what we saw in 46. And as I mentioned earlier, just all the other people kind of ahead of him in line as threats. He just doesn't come off as like the most threatening person in the room.
Yeah, and so I want to look at his like voting history because that's something people like to look at. And so he only went to one pre-merge tribal and he voted out Jim. So he was in the 4-2 there. At the Mariah boot, he's the one who voted for Venus in case a shot in the dark was played. And he votes for Venus to kind of put into Venus's head that, somebody who voted for her, he knew that would cause some chaos with her, which ultimately works out perfectly at the split at the next tribal because it's Venus and Liz who vote with him and Maria. Because I forget exactly how it plays out, but I'm pretty sure he puts in Venus's head. Maybe it was one of the Namis. I didn't vote for you. Like, she's not looking at
I
Charlie.
thought, doesn't Charlie own up to it and say, I was the one who
Does
voted for
he?
you? Yeah. And then
I don't
Q's like,
remember it.
why'd you tell her? It was perfect. Like, we had them split up.
You're right. You're right. And then it actually ends up currying in favor anyway. Okay, so you're right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I gotta rewatch 46. I watched that season just the once when it aired, and I didn't rewatch. And then though every other vote, he's on the right side, right? He votes out Soda, he votes out Tevin, he votes out Hunter, he votes out Tiffany, he votes out Venus, he votes out Q, he votes out Maria. So he's in the know on
Definitely.
everything. And then he gets taken to final tribal by Ben, who was his closest ally in the game. Very subtle, right? It's kind of similar to Genevieve, where it's a very subtle, I'm in control, even when it starts to feel like I'm not. Now, Genevieve more aggressively did it with the Saul boot, but I'm thinking more about like the Keyshawn boot, right? She does the Keyshawn boot, and that was so subtle of her taking control and manipulating people. I feel like Charlie played a similar game where he was never the one being discussed as, oh man, Charlie's going to kill us if he sits at the end. People were more worried about Maria than him.
Yeah, and that's why I don't like the Genevieve comparison because it became very clear early on that like if you sit next to Genevieve, you're losing. Like basically when she voted out Saul post merge, and it felt like Charlie was pulling the strings with Maria the entire time post merge. Maria was getting all the credit and was the biggest threat. And even when Charlie pulls off a move without Maria and then ends up voting out Maria, he still doesn't get credit at the end. Like he's still, and he even says this before his final tribal council that like my biggest concern is like I was pulling strings in the background, but was I too far in the background? Did people not see what I was doing? And that ultimately was his demise. Now look, maybe people just liked Kenzie more, or Kenzie just made better relationships. They didn't care about Charlie's, like who was the one with the better resume, who was voting correctly, who was dictating the moves of the season. But you have to think that if Charlie's game was a little bit more front facing, that he would have gotten at least one more vote at Final Tribal Council. If it isn't Maria's vote, someone else's vote.
So do you think that there's a chance maybe he comes out and plays more aggressively on this season, whether to his benefit or to his negative, knowing that he was that close to winning, and it may have been just because he didn't do enough to, Q, everybody gets mad at Q because Q voted for who needed the money. Everybody gets mad at Maria because the fire in her eyes. But Charlie didn't have such a dominant game that it was no questions asked going to that final tribal, right? It's like when you play a game, a sporting event, it's leave no doubt, right? Don't let the refs decide it. Just dominate and don't worry about it. Do you think he tries to play more aggressive maybe?
I do think there is a world in which that's the story that the show wants us to be like. That's the story the show wants to tell us. I don't know if Charlie needs to do that necessarily. I think Charlie is probably saying, look, I get Maria didn't voted for me. I played a damn near perfect game of Survivor. I don't need to change that much. But as we talked about with Genevieve on what is the everything you need to know about Genevieve, I was putting forth that, and this is what, the story producers will try to craft a story, at least have an idea of what story they want to tell with the player, what interview questions they're going to ask them heading into the game and on the early days of the game. And they do want to kind of poke some buttons, like get people thinking to play a certain way or like to change. I know this isn't a second chance season, but we have only 2 people that have won, or potentially 3 people that have won. So most of these people are coming back for a second, third, fourth, maybe 5th time. And like, what are you going to do differently? And I think what the producers and what the show will want from Charlie is to say, I was too much in the background last time.
Yeah.
I need to be more aggressive, or I need to let people know that I am playing a harder and better game. Now, Will he actually do that? I don't know. I don't think Charlie's sitting here thinking, man, I really messed up not being more aggressive, because if you be more aggressive, then you are in the Genevieve spot. And Genevieve got 5th place and
Yeah.
Charlie got 2nd. And Charlie was very close to winning. So I don't know if Charlie needs to change up his game as much. I think he needs to manage his threat level. And if that's his biggest goal, managing his threat level and not becoming the obvious target, not becoming the obvious strategic threat, then being more aggressive, and not even being more aggressive, but being more out in the open with your game, making your moves more public, being more vocal at tribal council, taking credit for moves after they've happened. That, to make, to really get jury votes at the end, to do that throughout the season, I don't think is beneficial to Charlie's game, because he will then not make it to the end. And I mean, honestly, that is the rub with modern era, new era Survivor. It seems like anyone who makes a strategic move and takes credit for it, or the collective, the people left, say, well, that was definitely Genevieve's move. Like, that was definitely Maria's move. That was definitely Dee's move. They don't, they become the biggest threats. And I actually mentioned Dee in there because Dee, her best move wasn't public. And that's how she won the game, by having not a front facing move.
Yeah.
So I don't think Charlie needs to play all that
And
differently.
And I think Kyle is a perfect example of how Charlie could play, because I actually think they have very similar demeanors. They're similar strategic. They're similarly social. They're similar in also like the physical prowess, right? Charlie was doing grip training beforehand, wins 2 immunities. I think Kyle wins 2 immunities on his season. Like, they're very similar. And Kyle played, I think, the perfect version where he took his time making his moves. And really, Charlie takes his time making his moves. But Kyle had that defining moment. Charlie didn't have that defining moment. He doesn't have that one thing that makes you say, oh man, that's why Charlie won the game, or that's what would have put him over the top over Kenzie. Kyle had that over Eva and Joe. And all season long on 48, we're waiting for that moment to happen. And it was when the Shaheen boot took place. That's when it really was, okay, Kyle can win this game now. Charlie getting rid of Maria actually might have been worse for him, even though Maria was going after him. Now, granted, she gets rid of Q first, but still, it's like the whole downfall of him and Maria. I don't know how that works. Now, here's a question for you, though. Do you think that there could be anything to a Ben Katzman alliance here? Because Coach is very close with Ben, played trumpet on his album. Charlie and Ben went to London to see Taylor Swift, I think, or somebody. Charlie and Coach had to have met before the season began, I would assume, through Ben. And then you have Tiffany, who's still on that season. Do you think that there could be anything to that?
I haven't thought about that. And I will answer your question. I just want to go back to something you said about like the big move, the defining moment, where it's like, yeah, Dee has her great play where Austin isn't in the know, and then she can reveal that final tribal. We have that same thing with Kyle, pulled a move over on Joe and Eva. At the time, it was Maria was the biggest threat, and Charlie made the move on Maria and on Q to some extent, where he's like, I don't want to be in the final four with Maria and Q. And he made the move. The problem was that he needed Kenzie as a number to be in on it. And so it didn't feel as defining, but that's just who you're sitting next to. So I just want to push back, because I do think Charlie did eventually make a move, and he did have a defining moment. It just wasn't against the person he ended up sitting with at Final Tribal Council. I do agree with you, though, that Kyle and Charlie are very, very, very similar. If Charlie wins, we're looking at Kyle and Charlie's wins as almost identical, I feel like. On to the coach of it all. You know me, Phil, I'm not as tuned in to what these people do off of the island or on social media, who's meeting up with who's going to events. You go to, many more events than I do. I go to about one a year in LA, or maybe one a season. And then on social media, I don't really follow any of that. So that had not crossed my mind that Coach and Charlie might have some relationship outside of the game due to Ben. So I don't know. How about you tell me? What do you think? I mean, have you seen Charlie and Coach hanging out on social media?
I think I lost you briefly. I hear you now. I think I lost you briefly. You said I don't, and then it was gone. I'm just, I don't know if it's me or you. That's the hard part when we're not live.
Yeah, I don't know. But do you think, I'm saying I don't know. I don't follow social media. Do you think Charlie and Coach have met before?
Yeah, I do. I think they probably have. I mean, I know that like Coach played trumpet on Ben's album, and I know that Charlie went to some of Ben's shows and stuff. So I think they probably have. And I actually think that Coach and Charlie might have each other's backs early on in this game. The question is, how much favor does Coach really curry on this tribe? Now, this is the tribe where it's uneven 5 new era versus 3 old school, and Chrissy is one of the old schools. So Chrissy played season 35. She's really not all that old school. But yeah, I don't know who it really comes down to then. Like, is Coach the person who can then help you build out an alliance of 5 on an 8-person tribe? I don't know, because I think they back each other, but it might not make a difference.
Yeah, it's so weird that they did that, having one tribe be 5-3, and then the other
They had
tribe
2
be
tribes be 5-3.
Right.
Yeah.
I just mean like one new era 5-3, one old school 5-3, and then one even. It's just bizarre.
Yeah, because we talked about it the whole time. If you're going to do 12 and 12, it had to be because it was going to be 4-4-4-4-4. And we knew that it was even men, even women of pre 40 and post 40. So why is it not 2-2-2-2 every try?
Yeah, I don't know.
I don't get it.
Definitely not in the hands of the fans. I'll tell you that much.
For sure. All right. Give me final thoughts on Charlie here.
Final thoughts. I'm going to make a positive projection just because I really do think that Charlie's game is so underrated in 46, and that if he does end up winning that season, he's looked at probably the best winner of the new era. I think he would be looked at higher than Jam Jam and higher than D, especially because he was always finding ways to be in the majority, but was never in like a dominant position of power. It felt like Q was running things, or at least like the point of control, the person who wanted to take control. We had that like alliance of 6 that was featured of so much of that orange tribe with Tevin and Hunter and Venus. You had and Liz. You had so many competing big personalities, and maybe this is the best part of Charlie's game, like playing that long with Q and Maria, and then like Ben, kind of a wild card. Kenzie, like she's doing her own thing. Tiffany was a strong strategic force. Even Tevin in there early. Tiffany, like playing with a lot of strong players and strong personalities, and still managed to navigate his way to the end while playing a damn good game. I do think if Charlie can survive the first 2 or 3, if he makes it, maybe there's going to be a swap early. Let's say if he makes a swap and survives 1 boot on his swap tribe, I think he makes a deep run into the top 6 or 7 of the season. And I do think there is winner potential with Charlie.
Yeah, I think Charlie has a really high ceiling, like I've already said. So I do agree with you that there's some winner potential. I think there's 2 things that could get Charlie early. One is if Tiffany comes in with a vendetta of, yes, I might have voted for Kenzie to beat you, and I feel good about that. But Charlie, you still got me out of the game. You were still one of the people who voted for me. I got to get back at you a little bit. And 2 would just be like, we know there's going to be idols. We know that there's going to be lost votes. We know that there's going to be random stuff. If this, like, Charlie is a very good option as a stray bullet kind of target here, because you have so many people on this tribe who are threatening, but Charlie is probably the one aside from D with the most winner potential, because D actually did win. But if you're looking at it for winner potential on this season, he might have the most out of anybody on this tribe, which might just make it be, hey, I'm not in the numbers. I'm outnumbered 6-1. I'm going to play an idol, and I'm going to make sure Charlie's the one who gets it.
Yeah. I mean, I could see him being a top of mind threat. Like I said, I think it helps maybe a little bit that D and Camilla are there. But yeah, it really, again, I can't say it anymore. Like I could see him being the first boot of this tribe. I really could. And I could see him making a deep run.
Yeah. All right. Well, that's everything you need to know about Charlie. So thank you all so much for listening. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Like this video, subscribe to the channel, and we'll see you next time with another episode.
See ya.